2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. I got Moist Mike. I got Stuart Kovacs along the other way. Rocking and rolling with me, jamming out all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time today. Xavier Gipson of the New York Jets. He is going to stop by at 3:20 p.m. Eastern, 12:20 p.m. Pacific today, so 20 minutes from now. We got a whole lot to do. Last night, the Buffalo Bills were magnificent. The Jacksonville Jaguars were horrible. Also last night, you saw the Cincinnati Bengals start off the year 0-3. Their defense was awesome in a loss a week ago to the Kansas City Chiefs. This time, their defense was horrible. And we saw a star that was born last night in someone that I've been very high on the last few years, and I wanted him to be the quarterback of my team, but my team was picking third in the draft, and he ended up going with the second overall pick, and that is the reigning Heisman Trophy winner in Jayden Daniels. We will get to all of that, but let's start with what I mentioned first, and that's the Buffalo Bills. The Bills last year, they had a terrible end to their season. Where have I heard that before? But when you look at the Buffalo Bills and how their season ended, they were oh so close, but yet so far, once again, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, with that being said, this offseason, we saw some changes in Buffalo, where a lot of mainstays that were a part of this run for the Buffalo Bills were either shown the door, left on their own accord, or got traded away from the organization. And through the first 3 weeks of the season, the Buffalo Bills, and no Lombardi trophies are handed out in September, but through the first 3 weeks of the season, the Buffalo Bills by far and away look like the best team in the league. And not only that, Josh Allen throwing 4 touchdown passes last night also looks like the best quarterback in the league. Now, it's going to be overboard today with Bills praise. It's 1,000% deserved. But if you think there's a lot of Bills praise today after their 47-10 beatdown of the Jacksonville Jaguars, just wait what could potentially be coming. Because this Sunday night, the Buffalo Bills are in Baltimore. Then after that, the Buffalo Bills are in Houston. And then after that, on Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills are in the swamps of Jersey at MetLife Stadium. If the Buffalo Bills go on the road against Baltimore, Houston, and the Jets, and they take 2 out of 3, it's going to show you how great the Bills can be this year. But I think a big part in this performance for the Bills right out of the gate is with all the changes that happened in this offseason for the Buffalo Bills, people thought they were going to take a step back. And I caution people who wrote off the Buffalo Bills. There's a reason why before the season started, I picked Josh Allen to win the MVP, and I once again picked the Buffalo Bills to win the AFC East. But with that being said, there was a question on were the Bills going to fall back, or were they going to be right where they've been the last few years, which has been close, and no one was talking really about them taking that next step. Well, through the first 3 games of the season, the Bills are looking like a team that can take that next step this year. And I think a major reason why is now the Buffalo Bills don't have to walk around on eggshells. Because last year they had to do that with the tender loving care and the delicate way that they had to go about dealing with Stephon Diggs. Because that was a nightmare all throughout the season. And I understand that Stephon Diggs did more good than bad in Buffalo, but last year he was a negative for the Buffalo Bills. And look at what happens, even though Stephon Diggs is in Houston and they'll be a good team this year, and they could maybe meet the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, but it makes Josh Allen the unquestioned man in Buffalo. No one is sitting there and having to deal about, okay, Stephon Diggs isn't happy because the Bills are winning and he didn't get his targets, or the Bills lost, and then it goes to a different level because Stephon also didn't get his targets. What you're seeing right now from the Bills is a team. Last year, they weren't a team. They were 52 guys that were a team, and then they had to deal with the individual of Stephon Diggs. And look last night. Josh Allen goes 23 of 30 for 263 yards and 4 touchdowns. And yes, he also led the Buffalo Bills in rushing. Yes, he looks like the MVP of the league right now. But my biggest takeaway from that performance was on those 4 passing touchdowns, it went to 4 different players. And then also, the Buffalo Bills defense did a kick-ass job, even with all they lost, and they lost Milano before the start of the season because of the injury, their great linebacker. They held the Jacksonville Jaguars to 10 points. That is complimentary football. That is elite, well-rounded football. And I think a big part of that is there's no doubt about it. That dopey poll and that dopey executive that was like, oh, Josh Allen is overrated. My ass. Please. That was stupid when it was said, and it looks even dumber after the first 3 weeks of the season. But the Bills this year so far, and there's still a long ways to go, right? I said it earlier, I'll say it again. The Lombardi Trophy isn't handed out in September, but this looks like a Bills team. This doesn't look like a Bills team that had to deal about, okay, Stephon Diggs and his feelings and him being upset with his role in the organization. And that goes a long way. It really does. Because in this league, bad locker room chemistry, distractions, they could derail a season or they could handcuff a team. And this Bills team right now looks like they're playing loose. They look like they're playing free. And they look like they're playing to go kick ass and take names this year. I get it. It's 3 weeks into the season. I get it. Week 1, they had a sloppy first half up against the Arizona Cardinals before Josh Allen put on the Superman cape and then popped off. I get it in week 2. The story really wasn't about Buffalo because Tua got hurt. But up until the time that Tua got hurt, the Buffalo Bills were kicking the crap out of the Miami Dolphins. And then the Buffalo Bills with the Jaguars, who you knew needed that game last night, and you would have thought would have come out swinging and would have came out with an intensity and a fire, they were basically put out of their misery by halftime. You know, they should have just said, hey, Jacksonville, it's not your night. You know what? Go to Barbill, go get some wings, go get some drinks, and we'll just throw in the towel for the second half. There was no need to play the second half of that game because that game was over at halftime. The Bills are a fun story through the first 3 weeks of the season. The Bills are a feel-good story, and that fan base deserves it. And if anyone had questions on, hey, is Buffalo going to fall back? I think through the first 3 weeks of the season, that question, that ambiguity about what Buffalo could be, that doubt on Buffalo is wiped away. We know they're going to be in the mix. And they're always going to be in the mix as long as they have number 17 standing upright. And that's why I thought it was laughable that people thought Buffalo was going to fall off this year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. Right now, they look like the best team. There's still questions if they could take that next step. But through the first 3 weeks of the season, this team kind of, you could tell, heard the kick in the ass that was given to them and all the people that were jumping off the Buffalo Bills bandwagon this offseason. And they look like ever since halftime of week 1, they look like a motivated team that's ready to kick ass and take names. And I can't stress enough how important it is, even though he did a lot of good in that organization and that he had a lot of good moments on the field, that Stephon Diggs is no longer there. Because he expired in Buffalo. It was time to move on. We didn't need to drag our feet anymore and see Buffalo still continue to employ Stephon Diggs. They needed him out of there. And they got him out of there. And early on, yes, this Bills team is 3-0, but they're still a work in progress. James Cook is reliable. He's a good running back, and he's also a threat out of the backfield. It was nice to see Dalton Kincaid, who I have high expectations for, come alive last night and get a touchdown. Keon Coleman got a touchdown as well. Shakir has been a really good wide receiver, even going back to last year. You may not have a lot of stars on Buffalo, but you have the right pieces. You have the right guys. You have the right attitude. You have the right ego this year. And you have the proper teammates this year. And when people could go to work and they don't have to deal with all the BS and they don't have to deal with all the petulant crap that Stephon Diggs brought to Buffalo last year, and the Buffalo Bills don't have to walk on eggshells and be so concerned about the feelings of Stephon Diggs, and oh, we won, but he didn't get his targets. We won, but he didn't score. Or even before the season started, there was an issue, and we still don't know what happened between Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Brandon Beane, and Sean McDermott. But they let the toothpaste out of the tube last year. And once that toothpaste got out of the tube, there was no way you would be able to put it back in and make it look like the way that it was before. So it was the right move to move on from Stephon Diggs this offseason. And once again, you are seeing a team this year, not 52 guys trying to go obtain a goal and one guy who's only concerned about himself. And I do believe the best thing to happen for the Buffalo Bills was to get Stephon Diggs out of there. And even though that's a lot of production that you need to replace, you could still make it into a positive when you have people working together to reach one goal. And that's to bring the great people of Buffalo a Lombardi trophy, something that those fans have never been able to call theirs. So it's only 3 weeks. These next 3 games, they're going to be a whole lot of fun. Starting in Baltimore on Sunday. and then finding their way in Houston, and then finding their way to the swamps of Jersey up against the Jets. But what the Bills have done through the first 3 weeks, they really need to be applauded. And this is a team that we know who their leader is. We know who their guy is. We know who their best player is. That's Josh Allen. But the rest of the guys are working together, not as individuals, to help Josh Allen out. Whether it's on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side of the ball. And Joe Brady's looking like a kick-ass offensive coordinator in this league too. And also, how great was it last night to see Damar Hamlin get that interception? And I was on the air that night. I'll never forget it. And I've said this before. I've had some nights that have left me speechless. I was on the air the night pretty much when the world shut down, when Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID. I've been on the air other nights, like, not as serious in the real world, but when Aaron Rodgers had the Achilles injury where you were left speechless. And I was also on the air and I had to speak for an hour and a half when we all thought Damar Hamlin died on a football field. But you couldn't say that, obviously, because no one wanted to say that and no one wanted that to be true. And the fact that man is able to walk, talk, live life, and play football, and he had a heck of a game last week, and he follows it up with an interception this week on Monday Night Football, man, what a feel-good story through the first 3 weeks of the season the Buffalo Bills are. But it can't just be praised here in September, and then in October, November, December, January, or even February, it go the other way. The Bills right now are Super Bowl or bust. A lot of people didn't think that was going to be the way to say it for Buffalo this year. It was going to just be good. But now anything short of a Super Bowl for the Buffalo Bills, it would be a failure of a season. But right now, they get an A+ for the way that this season has started. And I'll tell you tomorrow when we do Take 5 Wednesday, I will ruin the suspense now. So sorry about that. The number one team through the first 3 weeks of the season in the NFL are going to be the Buffalo Bills. And you look at the rest of the AFC, Kansas City, we all know they're still undefeated. The Jets, they are 2-1. We'll talk to Xavier Gipson coming up in a bit. Steelers are 3-0. Texans are a good football team, even though they just lost last week. We'll see what happens with the Bengals and the Ravens moving forward after their slow starts. But this AFC, even though it's Kansas City's to lose, Kansas City's in the last few years, even though they've been better than the rest, they've been vulnerable. And Buffalo's been close. And maybe this is the year that Josh Allen gets the job done. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. We will stay in the AFC East when we come on back. Xavier Gipson of the New York Jets will join us. Football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money, and Sleeper has a couple of huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, that's SCORE, and your first deposit will be doubled with the credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We go out to the guest line right now. We're welcoming Xavier Gipson from the New York Jets. Gang Green is 2-1 to open up the season, and we saw them kick off Week 3 with that blowout victory in front of their home fans up against the New England Patriots. The Jets will be back in action on Sunday going up against the Denver Broncos, and we welcome in the second-year wide receiver and also return man and Xavier Gipson, kind enough to join us right now. Xavier, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this, and how you been?
No problem. I appreciate you. Man, I can't complain, man. Just being great.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming on. So how do you I know you're probably on to Week 4, but how do you look back at that environment and what your team was able to do on Week 3, really taking it to the Patriots?
Our preparation, it was amazing. Hopefully we can carry that over, the same momentum we had in that game, to Week 4 against a good team with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I take a look at your offense, and that's what everyone, right, is obsessing about, because Aaron Rodgers is able to play this year with him being healthy. And you being in that wide receiver room, where do you think the offense is at, through the first 3 games of the season? Because you guys had your best performance, obviously, on Thursday night. Like, how much room is there still to grow with this offense?
I think there's a lot of room to grow. I don't think we reached our full potential yet. We're still learning each other. We're still learning how to play with A-Rod. He's just so ahead of everyone, just mentally, and his ability to throw the ball is amazing. So I feel like once we hit our full potential, it's gonna be hard to stop us.
What was it like the first time you met Aaron last year? I know you were an undrafted rookie out of Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah.
You're grinding. You're trying to make the team, and there's hard knocks. You got cameras all in your face. And the Jets are a huge story, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers, who you probably grew up watching, and you saw him play for all those years in Green Bay. What was that like the first time you can remember meeting Aaron Rodgers?
It was like unreal, First, I'm in the league, trying to fight for a spot. Then Hard Knocks came along, and then it's like, A-Rod, man, that's Aaron Rodgers right there, Not too many people could say they was around Aaron Rodgers for this amount of time. And I was kind of starstruck at first. It was hard for me to go talk to him. And I finally put on my big boy pants and go talk to him. And he was a cool guy. That's a real leader. He's a real leader. For real. So.
Yeah, you hear so many negative things sometimes about the culture and Aaron Rodgers. What is the culture of the Jets? What is the culture on that offensive side of the ball with Aaron Rodgers being your leader?
I can't really tell the culture with the Jets. This is my second year, so I'm still learning it myself. But as far as playing with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's gonna hold every single player, offense, defense, special teams, don't matter, to the highest standard. He expects for you to be great because every day he coming in and he's going to be great. He's going to attack every day like he's going to win the championship. So he holding everyone to a high standard.
You're a young player in this league, Xavier Gipson. So is Garrett Wilson. We've seen Garrett Wilson have a ton of success. What are you able to learn, just wondering, from being able to watch Garrett Wilson day in and day out?
I'm always picking Garrett mine. How to run routes, what he do when he catch the ball. Of course, this dude is like freaking nature. Like, I'm not just blowing smoke up on him, but for real. Like, how the way he bend, he's just super flexible. He got speed. He got great bounce. Have you seen him jump?
Yeah, it's
like
crazy.
When he jump, don't it look like he getting bigger, like taller or something?
I'll tell you. Here's what I'm excited about or curious to see. I've seen him play really well with no quarterback. Now he has a quarterback. When the two of them get on the same page, Aaron and Garrett Wilson, man, it looks like the sky's the limit for the two of them.
Right. Yeah, especially in practice. We see it all the time. They're going to start hitting eventually, and I feel like he's going to take off.
How about the hands of Breece Hall, too? We always focus as him as a running back, but I remember that Week 2 game up against Tennessee. Man, that was some catch he had, I think, in the right side of the end zone.
Breece the Beast. I mean, he's just an athlete. He can play basketball, play football, run track. He always compete. He very competitive, and I don't know what to say about him. He's not human. I don't think he's human for real.
Xavier Gipson here with us. What do you want people to know about your story? It was told a little bit on Hard Knocks, but you're an undrafted guy, second year in the league. You made the team now back-to-back seasons. Kind of tell me a little bit about your upbringing and your journey with the things that you want to share.
It's a lot. It's a lot that I want to share. Eventually, I will feel comfortable with sharing that soon. But more pretty much everything been out. I came from a small school. A lot of people goals is to make it. And, I don't want anyone to get down on themselves, even they go to a small school route, JUCO, whatever. Just keep going hard. Eventually, someone gonna see your greatness. And you just gotta go attack it. Don't be scared to reach your full potential. Don't be scared to don't hold yourself back at all. Just go get what you want to get.
I was really impressed with you during Hard Knocks because that can't be easy. And I know the Jets have control on what's getting out, but this is your livelihood. and you're competing, trying to make the team, and you got cameras in your face. It was a fun experience, obviously, with the way that it worked out. You made the team. But was that kind of tough a little bit with always having the cameras in your face as you're just trying to get better day in and day out?
Yes, sir. I wasn't used to that, Come from where I come from, I wasn't used to that, but it's kind of crazy because my mom had found my name on a TV show at the end of a movie. Where they got the subtitles and they got the names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she said when she found out I was on Hard Knocks, she was like, man, I got your name off a TV show. And it is crazy how I was on Hard Knocks. But other than that, man, it was kind of tough. For real, learning the plays, trying to ignore the cameras and getting on by A-Rod. So it was kind of tough for sure.
And then we know what happened Week 1 last year. Unfortunately, Aaron goes down, but then you had the game-winning return. How did you kind of look back at that night now pretty much over a full year later?
I don't know what happened. That just happened.
You kind of just blacked out on the field, right? It was like, don't pinch me. I don't want to wake up.
All I seen was gold when I made it to the end zone. So after that, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to do it again.
Now, you being a return guy, also with a receiver Xavier Gipson, the new kickoff rule has been a big point of emphasis. Do you like this new kickoff rule? Kind of give me your thoughts on that. I'm
still trying to figure it out. I like it a lot, though. I think sooner or later in the season, a lot of people gonna start figuring it out. I'm just hoping that we can figure it out faster than other people. So other teams, I should say. But I kind of like it.
When everything clicks for you, and you see yourself at your full potential, and you're still growing as a player, what type of football player can Xavier Gipson be for an NFL team?
I feel like once it starts clicking, I could be a great player. That's always been my dream. I truly believe that in my heart, and it's kind of everything that's happening now. It kind of happened in college. It kind of happened in high school and middle school, and I see it over and over. And I know eventually I'm gonna start clicking. I'm eventually gonna start getting the reps and playing faster than what I know I'm used to.
Wrap it up with Xavier Gipson. This week you guys got the Denver Broncos. How do you kind of look at their defense? Clearly all things start with Pat Surtain, the second, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL.
I think they're pretty good. I know they got my boy over there, JFM. He came from SFA. He's a good athlete. I think they got a good team. I truly do believe they have a good team. We're going to come and prepare hard for them and try to carry our momentum over again. I just think we can get control. We can control.
I know you guys played them last year, and there's a whole Nathaniel Hackett storyline with him used to being the coach there and things that Sean Payton has said in the past. Yeah. Is that still a storyline this week, or is that old news at this point?
I don't really know what they had going on. I just try to handle my business and keep me and my boys in line. But other than that, man, they come along with the story. They just come along with it. I'm rocking with Hat.
Yeah, what was your relationship, just wondering, like with Zach Wilson last year? Because I know he's not expected to play this weekend with Bo Nix being their guy, but now you have Zach Wilson in Denver. So how was your relationship with Zach when he was with the Jets?
I think he's a cool dude. I got a jersey downstairs. So, I had a good relationship with him. He's a chill dude, different dude for sure. But I think he's a good dude overall.
Xavier, well, hey, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this, and good luck on the rest of your NFL journey.
Alrighty, thank y'all.
There you go. Xavier Gipson joining us from the New York Jets on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Jets' second-year wide receiver, and you may remember him from Hard Knocks a year ago as he was trying to make the team as the Jets are on Hard Knocks in Aaron Rodgers' inaugural season. And there's always going to be storylines that emerge out of Hard Knocks besides Robert Saleh and also besides Aaron Rodgers, and Xavier Gipson was one of those stories. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. We'll take a break. We opened up the show talking about the Buffalo Bills. We will still delve into the other side of that game, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars after their 0-3 putrid start. But when we come on back, we will talk about the other Monday Night Football game that we saw last night. Are the Bengals cooked after their 0-3 start? And also, we got to see some of Jayden Daniels last night, and what you got to see from Jayden Daniels was really impressive. So we'll discuss Jayden Daniels when we come on back. Update time, here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with life, electronic device, and pet health insurance. Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre revealed he has Parkinson's disease during a congressional hearing. Favre made the disclosure when he said he lost money investing in Prevacus, a company that was making a drug for concussions. The former Packers great has been accused of redirecting public money to his alma mater, Southern Mississippi, and the founder of Prevacus pleaded guilty to wire fraud and using the welfare money to cover gambling and other debts. The Bengals have lost offensive tackle Trent Brown for the season. He'll undergo surgery for a torn patella tendon suffered last night. Saints Pro Bowl center Eric McCoy headed for groin surgery and expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks. Mike Tomlin said he wasn't ready to make a commitment for Sunday, but said He wants Justin Fields to walk in tomorrow focused on being the starter again. Russell Wilson will likely be limited once again. Dolphins quarterback Skylar Thompson is now just day-to-day due to a chest injury. Baseball this afternoon in Detroit. The Tigers have a 2-0 lead over the Rays as they head to the bottom half of the seventh inning. Tarek Skubal has been brilliant once again. The Royals are currently tied with the Tigers for the second wild card in the American League and are in Washington tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
And the Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD, veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's players, Colts corner Jalen Jones, in Sunday's 21-16 win over the Bears. Jones had 5 tackles and picked off Caleb Williams twice. All righty, let's get to the Bengals and the Commanders from last night. First off, Jayden Daniels was an absolute star in the game. Like, that to me is the biggest takeaway from last night. The Commanders are 2-1. I know the Bengals are 0-3. There's a lot to delve into with the Bengals. We will do that coming up momentarily. But what I saw from Jayden Daniels last night is every reason why I was hoping that my football team was going to have the second overall pick in the draft. Like, when I looked at Caleb Williams, we're always told he's the generational guy. I was never in the mindset of thinking the Patriots were going to get the number 1 overall pick because you knew how bad the Panthers were and the Bears had the Panthers pick. And there were like a few things with Caleb Williams with how he played at USC in that last season where you could question it, but you knew he was going to be the unquestioned number 1 overall pick. But then for that 2 spot, I sat here in this chair and I said, I hope Jayden Daniels is on the Patriots. And I thought Jayden Daniels was the next best quarterback in this draft. Now, when Drake May gets his opportunity, can Drake May be a good player? Yes. But Jayden Daniels showed you why the upside was higher with him, in my opinion, than Drake May, than J.J. McCarthy, than Bo Nix, than Michael Penix Jr., like whoever was the other guy that was vying for the second quarterback off the board. Big arm, and then he also has the mobility and the legs to complement that big arm. And to see what's happened with Jayden Daniels, from where he was at Arizona State to what he did for 2 seasons at LSU, is absolutely remarkable. And it's something that gets in the water, I guess, for LSU quarterbacks and these epic rises that they have and these rise to greatness, because you got to see with Joe Burrow, who transferred over from Ohio State. Joe Burrow gets to LSU, and in that first year at LSU, we were talking more about the running back Nick Brossette than actually Joe Burrow. And then the following year, Joe Burrow may have been at best a 5th-round pick projected, at best. No one thought he was going to go on to win a Heisman, have one of the great college football teams of all time, also then go on to win a national championship and be the number 1 overall pick of the draft. Think about how unlikely that story was. And for Jayden Daniels, when he transferred over from Arizona State, no one was talking about him being a top 5 pick of the draft. Heck, I talked to Jayden Daniels at the Heisman, and I asked him a question. And I said to him, the question was something along the lines of Kirk Herbstreit was on, and the Heisman's given out in December, early December. I said, Kirk Herbstreit was just on with Pat McAfee, and he said, whoever drafts you, you're going to be the biggest steal of the draft. Does that all offend you? Because it kind of infers if you're the biggest steal of the draft, you're not going to go as early as maybe you should go. Think about that conversation. That was just from the beginning of December. And then at the end of April, this guy goes on to be the second overall pick. And right now, through 3 weeks, if you had to pick an offensive rookie of the year in the NFL, it's either Jayden Daniels or it's Malik Neighbors of the New York Giants, both LSU guys. But that performance last night from Jayden Daniels was sick. 21-23, 254 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown on 12 carries for 39 yards. And oh yeah, by the way, it was on the road. And how about that throw towards the end of the game? You know, I needed one more yard out of Brian Robinson, and I would have won my fantasy matchup. So I was hoping they were going to get a first down, and then Brian Robinson Jr. was going to go on out and get one more yard, and they'd run out the clock. But instead, Jayden Daniels said, nuh-uh, I'm going to throw a deep ball down the right sideline to scary Terry McLaurin, and he'll get a touchdown. And I feel great for Terry McLaurin, too. He's been with the Commanders for a while. He's been one of the more underrated wide receivers in football. Never says the wrong thing. But he's played with a lot of bad quarterbacks. And now he gets some hope. And here's the cool part about the Commanders. This is what the greatness of C.J. Stroud showed us a year ago. It doesn't take long if you have the guy to go from the NFL's outhouse to the penthouse. Because look where the Texans were. The Texans were a laughingstock. And the Commanders have been a laughingstock too. And thankfully, Daniel Snyder's out of the organization. You have Josh Harris running the show. You bring in Dan Quinn. You have Adam Peters. Don't forget about Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator. And all those things are nice, but you need the quarterback in this league. If you don't have the quarterback, you don't have a chance. And for Commanders fans, I'm not telling you this team's going to the playoffs. I'm not telling you this team's going to be great. But at least your optimism that you haven't had in a long time. And the Commanders fan, there has basically been apathy where the fan base has been away. The fan base has been embarrassed. The fan base has stopped showing up. But with Daniel Snyder out, excitement. With the new coach and a new GM in, excitement. But most importantly, with a new franchise quarterback in, excitement. And that excitement through the first 3 weeks of the season hasn't faded yet. And there's optimism here for the Commanders. And you just need that optimism to continue through the season where even if you don't make the playoffs at the end of the year, you could sit back and you could say, hey, as long as our quarterback stays healthy, we got that dude. And we don't have to worry about that dude for the foreseeable future. And think about it. Remember when Jayden Daniels left Arizona State and his teammates took everything from his locker and they were bad-mouthing him? That Jayden Daniels could be the rookie of the year in the NFL. That Jayden Daniels won a Heisman. That Jayden Daniels was the second overall pick of the draft. And they lost week 1 to the Buccaneers. They beat the Giants field goal party. And then they just beat up the Cincinnati Bengals where the Bengals were 0-2 and now they're 0-3. And let me just give you the next 6 to 7 weeks for the Commanders. Because I'm not ready to tell you the Commanders are this great team. I'm not even ready to tell you that the Commanders are going to finish above 500. But their next 6 or 7 games, there's maybe only one game on that schedule that you look at and you go, they probably can't win that. I'm not saying they're going to win them all. But they play the Cardinals this upcoming Sunday at 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time. Think about the last time people were really excited for a Commanders game. You walk into that game and you're excited about Kyler Murray against Jayden Daniels. That's a winnable game. The following week, you got the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are a dumpster fire right now. Then after that, here's the game that's going to be very tough to win in Baltimore up against the Ravens. But Stu, I'll give you the rest of the schedule. Cardinals, they could win. Browns, they could win. And Ravens, they probably on the road in Baltimore that early on as a team. That's probably the one game that you're can't really make a compelling case for them to win that game, even with the Ravens being 1-2 to start the season.
Yeah, they could easily win 2 out of those 3 games. Very easily.
Now, the rest of the way, they play the Panthers. I'm not going to get delirious after one Panthers win. And I saw Adam Thielen today is now going to be out for a few weeks with an injury. So let's not get carried away with the Panthers. Then following after that, got a matchup with the first and second pick of the draft, Bears. After that, the Giants. And then you play the Steelers, who are 3-0. But let's see where the Steelers are at in a few weeks. So their next 7 games, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Panthers, Bears, Giants, and Steelers. If they win 4 out of 7, and you already have 2 wins, you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, maybe this team can be a playoff team. Now, down the stretch, their schedule does pick up in intensity. And 4 out of 7 may not be able, maybe you have to get 5 out of 7. But it's not, I'm not saying they will. There's going to be some growing pains with this team. But it's not crazy for that team to be a surprise team this year, to be one of those teams at the end of the year that makes the playoffs and you're like, didn't see that coming before the season started. Now, I'll give you their schedule the rest of the way. After that, Eagles, Cowboys, Titans, Saints, Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys. Like, can this team go 9-8 and make the playoffs? I'm not going to say no. And think about that. That's the nice part here for the Commanders. You actually have hope and you have some optimism. So before I put an expectation on the Commanders, let's just see how the next 3 games play out. But really, their next 7, there's only one game that you look at and you go, okay, I don't think they could win that game, and that's the game in Baltimore up against the Ravens. Now on the flip side, I was watching ESPN today, and they played Chris Canty just eviscerating Joe Burrow and basically saying, stop with the excuses for Joe Burrow. We got to start putting the blame on him. Last night, I can't blame Joe Burrow. You want to blame Joe Burrow for week 1 against the Patriots? Fine. And then I got delayed before I could take my shower today, coming out of the gym before I ended up walking into work, because there was First Take on where I was watching, and that's where I saw the Canty opinion, and you had Stephen A., it was Shannon Sharp, and Swagoo, Marcus Spears, who were having a very heated debate. And, like, Shannon Sharp, I thought, was just embarrassing. Were they, like, slamming Joe Burrow? Stu, if I would have told you last night going into the game, and I know sometimes stats are misleading, that Joe, you see the Bengals, they're 0-2. You know they needed that game last night. They didn't get it. But if I would have told you, just on the surface, knowing what the Bengals defense did last week, where the Bengals defense was phenomenal up against Mahomes and the Chiefs, even though they lost, and if I would have said the Bengals would have won by 30, the Bengals would have had 33 points against the Commanders, and Joe Burrow would be 29 of 38 for 324 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And the Cincinnati Bengals in the contest would not have an interception or a fumble in the game. You would probably think that they would win, and you probably think they would win going away, correct?
Definitely. I would have been like, congratulations from avoiding the 0-3 club.
So this is, to me, why I think it's crazy for last night. Week 1, you want to blame Joe Burrow, fine. But last night, Joe Burrow wasn't the reason they lost that game. It was the Bengals defense, which was, and it shows you it's a week-to-week league, which was phenomenal last week against the Chiefs, up against the Commanders and Jayden Daniels, who I think the world of, but he's still a rookie quarterback. They made him look like a 15-year pro that was getting ready to find his Hall of Fame jacket and locate his bust in Canton, Ohio. This Bengals team is in trouble because when the offense shows up, the defense doesn't. When the defense shows up, the offense doesn't. And then guess what? When both sides of the ball show up, they still somehow find a way to lose the game. They're 0-3 for a reason. And I know they play the Panthers coming up this week. I'm going to go out on a limb here. They should beat the Panthers, but I thought they should have beat the Commanders. But if they go 1-3, it's not like crisis is averted. You know, they can still find, this is what they're going to have to do. And I'm trying to think of this even at the worst case scenario, because any jackass could get on the radio and say, hey, they got to go win their next 4 games and be 4-3. But if the Bengals want to survive this season, they play the Panthers, the Ravens, the Giants, and the Browns as their next 4. They got to win, bare minimum, Panthers, Giants, Browns. If they get out of this stretch at 3-4, you still got a shot. But if they drop 2 out of these next 4 games, and you already have 5 losses on the season, it's going to get late early for the Cincinnati Bengals. And if this team misses the playoffs this year, it's one thing when you missed the playoffs last year and Joe Burrow got hurt. But if you miss the playoffs this year, I know the Bengals are a cheap organization and they haven't paid Jamar Chase yet, which is ridiculous. But the conversation about Zach Taylor is going to be out there. But here's the thing. Even if the Bengals got rid of Zach Taylor, it's one thing, okay, you miss the playoffs, you say fire the coach. Do you believe that this ownership group is then going to go big coach hunting? Because I'll throw out Belichick's name for a handful of teams. I could throw out Belichick's name for the Bengals, why Belichick would be interested. But are the Bengals going to be interested in paying Bill what it costs? Probably not. So if you want to then go to the next tier of names, how about a Mike Vrabel? How fun would that be? Mike Vrabel with the Bengals. Are the Bengals going to be willing to pay Mike Vrabel what it takes? Can't sit there with great confidence. So this is a year for the Bengals where T. Higgins is probably not back next year. Jamar Chase, that's something to watch because they didn't get a deal done. And he's supposedly mad at the organization. Does he leave his BFF down the road in Joe Burrow? And you got a defense that one week shows up and looks great, and then the next week they show up and they look like they can't do anything. But I can't walk away last night putting this on the quarterback. Other weeks, yes. Week 1, sure. But this is a week where I don't walk away saying, oh, my first takeaway is let me get in front of my microphone in a national radio program like other national radio hosts and rip Joe Burrow. I'm not going to do that. Sorry, Chris Canty. I like you, right? We're represented by the same agent, but blaming Burrow for last night to me is comical. But yeah, you pressed the big fat red panic button on the Bengals because they were 0-2. Everyone thought they were going to win last night. And not only did they lose, the quarterback put up 3 passing touchdowns, didn't turn over the football. They had 33 points, and it still wasn't good enough. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We opened up the show praising the Buffalo Bills, saying the Bills for the first 3 weeks look like the best team in the NFL. How about the Jaguars? They're 0-3, and their franchise quarterback is looking like a bust. We'll talk about that next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So heading into the offseason, I remember having a conversation about quarterbacks that were looking to get paid. And we talked about Jacksonville. We talked about Miami. We talked about Dallas and a few others. Detroit, too. And I said, with Detroit and the Lions, you have to pay Jared Goff. The Lions have a Super Bowl chance this year. You don't want to disrupt anything there. You give him his money, even though Jared Goff may not have the feel of a $50+ million quarterback. When we talked about the Dallas Cowboys, I said, even though I'm not Dak's biggest fan on the field, I thought they needed to get a deal done with Dak before free agency started so they could spread that contract out with the enormous cap hit that he had for this upcoming season, and then they could go get some other players like, I don't know, a Derrick Henry. And now we have Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones basically crying poverty because they weren't able to afford Derrick Henry because of all the other mouths that they had to feed. Well, if they would have just not dragged their feet and waited and just saw the price go up and up and up and up with Dak Prescott until the morning of the start of the season, you maybe could have had a player like Derrick Henry. So I'm not going to go back and say the Cowboys were wrong to get a deal done with Dak. I'm not going to say the Lions were wrong to get a deal done with Jared Goff. The only thing I will say about the Cowboys should have just got the deal done a lot sooner. But I sat here on this show and on other shows. I do it weekly on 560 WQAM. And I said it would be a massive mistake if the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Miami Dolphins gave their quarterbacks contract extensions this offseason. And my reason for Tua Tagovailoa was simple. He had a really good season last year. And thankfully he got paid with the extra concussion he just suffered and another concussion he got suffered. And you like to see Tua get taken care of. But that's a business part of it. Tua, going into last season, the big conversation with him was, can he make it through a season healthy? So why would I go reward a quarterback when I didn't have to, and I still had time and a year left on his deal? Why would I go, and also the franchise tag route if you really wanted to, why would I rush to pay him this offseason? And the Dolphins did that. And through a few games into this season, we don't know when Tua is going to come back and play because, unfortunately, he suffered another concussion that will knock him out at least for the next 3 weeks, the next 3 games. Already sat out one of those games. Now, on the other side, you have Trevor Lawrence. And I get it. Jacksonville, Duval, the Jaguars, they got a small organization feel. So when you have a number 1 overall pick at quarterback, even if he hasn't been great, you may just say, okay, he's the face of the franchise, so we have to pay him. But Trevor Lawrence had this year left on his deal and then a 5th-year option. And through the career so far of Trevor Lawrence, year 1 was a disaster. But I will exonerate him for year 1, and I will exclude bashing him from year 1 because Urban Meyer was a catastrophe as an NFL head coach. Then in year 2, I got to see Trevor Lawrence take that next step with competent professional coaching. And not only the Jaguars were in the postseason, but they had that epic comeback up against the Chargers, which we praised the Jaguars in the moment. We also ripped the Chargers in the moment too. Kind of looking out how the rest of the career has gone for Trevor Lawrence, it really shows the incompetence of Brandon Staley with that lead, how he wasn't able to protect it and win that game. But last year, the Jaguars got off to a good start. They were looking like they were going to make a triumphant return or a postseason return for 2 consecutive seasons, back-to-back years. And then down the stretch, injuries happened, and they were absolutely miserable down the stretch. So going into this year, it felt like it was a prove-it year for Trevor Lawrence. Year 1, not his fault. Year 2, he played well. Year 3, there was some good, there was some bad. And they were disappointing when we thought going into last year, that team was ready to take off. That team was ready to go and take that next step where it was, okay, you made the second round to the playoffs. Now can they go and be a conference championship team, and you missed the postseason? So heading into this year, I was actually optimistic about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I picked them. And I think the world of the Texans. I think the Texans are one of the better teams in the AFC. But we just saw the Jaguars go from making the playoffs, winning the division, to then the following year missing the playoffs. And I said the Texans will still make the playoffs, but they'll be a wild card team. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, as long as C.J. Stroud doesn't get hurt, I'll be 100% wrong on that. Because the Colts aren't winning this division. Tennessee's not winning this division. And the Jaguars are 0-3. I don't even know if Doug Peterson's going to make it through the season. So the Texans, even though they had a very pedestrian performance and an insipid performance up against the Minnesota Vikings this past week, they're still 2-1. And the Texans haven't even looked all that great, to be honest. It wasn't like they were phenomenal at finishing off drives up against the Chicago Bears. But the Texans are going to win that division. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are now 0-3. And it just shows you, just because everybody else is paying their quarterback doesn't mean you need to. Because it never made sense, in my estimation, when the Jaguars gave that deal, for them to give that deal to Trevor Lawrence because he didn't earn it yet. And I get it. When you're given a contract, you're doing how you're paying someone how you project them to do into the future. But you didn't need the future and that projection of the future to be rewarded in the present. Because you had this year to at least get through, and I understand it gets dicey when you go into the final year of a contract, but if you wanted to, you still had a 5th-year option that was already picked up and could have still been used to save some time. The Jaguars had the luxury of time, and they failed to utilize it. They said, nope, we're going to spend like a drunken sailor, and we're going to give Trevor Lawrence $275 million, and we're going to keep him in Jacksonville through 2030. And last night, Trevor Lawrence couldn't even, forget about getting through the entire game, he couldn't even keep them in the game in the first half. And I get it, the defense was terrible. Fully cognizant of that. The entire team was terrible. The coaching was terrible. But Trevor Lawrence was also terrible in the game too. And I'm not asking, right, Trevor Lawrence to single-handedly lead them to victory. But you would think a franchise quarterback who is in year 4, a guy that you just paid $275 million to say you're the face of the franchise, can at least get you to halftime without having Jaguars fans, all like 13 of you, say, oh, we got to turn off the game. We can't watch this anymore. Mercy, mercy, mercy. This game is over. Just throw in the towel. Because last night what you saw from the Buffalo Bills was basically like a UFC heavyweight getting into the octagon. And the UFC heavyweight, right when the bell was rung and you get the fight getting underway in the first round, delivered a kick to the jaw and you were knocked out. But for some reason, let's just say Herb Dean, who's a great UFC ref, didn't think the guy was actually knocked out. And you just had Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills and Bills Mafia pummeling your ass over and over and over and over again. And they didn't stop the fight. But that fight was over after the first knockout punch. That fight was over after James Cook got in the end zone. That fight was over when Dalton Kincaid made the touchdown catch last night. That fight was over quickly. And if I'm Shad Khan, who, remember, before the start of the season, he was saying there's no more excuses. And that's what I respect out of an owner, right? You had a team that 2 years ago looked the part of a team moving in the right direction, won a division, won a playoff game. Then they took a step back. Even though they weren't dreadful in their final record, they still took a step back. And then you had an owner challenge Jacksonville, challenge the Jaguars before the start of the season. And through the first 3 weeks, this team looks like they want no part of this season. And think about the way that the Jaguars have lost their first 3 games. They were ready to make a statement against the Dolphins. That's the ironic part. Once Travis Etienne fumbled the ball right at the goal line, that season evaporated and went poof into thin air. They were ready. It's like an early first 3 weeks. What would have happened if Etienne didn't fumble that football? Because they were up 17-7, and there was 2:19 left in the third. If they score that touchdown, if they get that extra yard, they're up 24-7. They win that game. They win that game, and they're 1-0. But once, and this is why this team is mentally soft. Once they lost that game, it carried over into the next week, where you're going up against Cleveland, and Cleveland is no good. It's not like that's a great Cleveland Browns team. They have their own issues. And your offense could only put up a measly 13 points. That's all they could do. So that ATN fumble changed the entire complexion of the season, because what I've learned about the Jaguars is they can't handle adversity. And when things go wrong or when something goes bad, everything just falls down right after that. ATN could have put them up 24-7. Instead, he fumbles, and the Dolphins ends up winning that game. After that, right, you're 0-1. Oh, it's a terrible defeat. You're hearing the outside noise. Then you lose to Cleveland. You're 0-2. And you would think a team that's 0-2, even though I thought Buffalo was going to win the game last night, you would think they would show some fight. You'd think they would have some heart. But they didn't have heart last night. They allowed Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, James Cook, DeMar Hamlin. They allowed the Buffalo Bills to just open up a can of whoop ass on them, drag them across the field, and then dance on them for 4 quarters. And not one point in the game did you say, hey, that's a Jaguars team that looks PO'd, and they're at least fighting, they're at least competing hard. I'm just asking for bare minimum simple stuff. And they couldn't even have a good competitive effort last night. They couldn't even let me sit on my couch and watch that game in the fourth quarter when ESPN, as they have both games, ESPN, ABC last night, and on the broadcast that was dedicated to the Bills-Jaguars, they're going split screen trying to show you Jayden Daniels against Joe Burrow. How many times they go split screen last night? And it was frustrating because my TV to the left is a streaming TV. And that's the TV that I had for the Bengals and the Commanders. And my TV to the right is my cable TV. So whenever they would go split screen, the cable TV was obviously ahead of the streaming TV, which was annoying. But that broadcast last night, which was a good booth, by the way, Chris Fowler, who's a legend. You had Laura Rutledge on the sidelines, Dan Orlovsky, and Louis Riddick. They knew that their game was over instantly. And the executives at ESPN, ABC, Disney were like, hey, let's just split screen because this game on the left, it's actually sad and pathetic what the Jaguars are doing. But the Jaguars only have to blame themselves because sometimes you need to use a contract as motivation. And they should have tested Trevor Lawrence going into this year. They should have said, Trevor, we want you to be the dude. We want you to be the guy. We want to pay you more money next offseason, but you got to earn it. Instead, they, in a premature fashion, rushed to pay him before his fourth season, give him 5 extra years, keep him there through 2030, and give him $275 million. And now, 3 weeks in the season, Trevor Lawrence, who is supposed to be generational, Trevor Lawrence, you're supposed to be elite. Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be a franchise quarterback. Well, he hasn't looked generational throughout his career. He doesn't look elite. He doesn't look like a franchise quarterback. He looks like an average to below average NFL quarterback right now. That's what he looks like. But you're stuck with him because you rushed to pay him. Because all the other cool kids were paying their quarterbacks. You know, if someone told you to jump off a cliff, would you do it? So just because you say, oh, you got to go pay Trevor Lawrence, go pay him. Everyone else is doing it. You know, everyone's running, jumping off the cliff. Doesn't mean you should do it. And you did. When you should have made him earn that money. You should have said, hey, we want to pay you more. We will pay you more. We'll give you whatever you want. You name the price. But show us that you're worth it this year. Instead, with the 4th year left of the contract and a 5th year option, they go, nope. We'll keep those years, but we'll also give you more years through 2030. You're our guy. And what a mess this is. And you know what? Quite frankly, I hope Houston kicks their ass on Sunday. Because I don't want to have to get psyched up and jacked up, even though I have a future on the Jaguars. Future ticket that I made when I was in Vegas to win that division. I don't want to get misled on that. I don't. Now, this schedule the next 4 weeks, it's not impossible. Houston, Indy, Chicago, New England. But why should I expect that this team is capable of taking 3 out of 4? Why should I anticipate that? With their dog crap effort that they had last night. And if this continues, you know the quarterback's coming back next year. Hey, they just paid him. But Doug Peterson will be out of a job. And Doug Peterson, who I think I've been his biggest defender, Philly did him dirty. Guy wins a Super Bowl with the backup quarterback. The following year was in the divisional round with the backup quarterback. The year after that, loses quarterback in a wild card game, and he missed the playoffs 1 year and you get rid of him. Doug coming to Jacksonville makes the playoffs in year 1. Quarterback gets hurt in year 2, but right now, they're not responding to anybody in Jacksonville. And Doug Peterson's going to be the one at the end of the year. If this continues to go the way that it is, and I have no reason that it's going to turn around, Doug Peterson's going to be the one that's sent packing. Because they just reset the timeline of that organization by paying Trevor Lawrence the money that they did and rushing to do so. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will get to overreaction, proper reaction when we come on back. But first, football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you could win real money. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. And Sleeper Picks has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, that's SCORE, and your first deposit will be double with a credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use my code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy?
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
So, Stu, Samter and I went to that Gatorade Super Bowl party where actually Stephon Diggs and Trayvon Diggs were at. And when you walked in, you got to customize your Gatorade water bottle, which I have right here. So you could see, well, can't really see it on YouTube just because it's white, but you have my name Gelb on it. And this is like the same water bottles that they use on the sidelines where if there's like a timeout and you see the trainers or the staff run out to the field and they, give the players water. That would actually kind of be a fun job. I just thought about that. If this radio thing doesn't end up working out, I would love to be on an NFL sideline and just be like, I could be like Big Dom, Be one of those big burly dudes that just run on out onto the field and making sure that the players get some high-quality H2O. All righty? So that's what I think I may do if this radio thing doesn't work out.
It's not a bad backup plan.
I'm trying to think, which NFL coach? Here's a good question. We'll get to overreaction and proper reaction in just a second. I'll put you on the spot. Which NFL coach would you most want to work for? If there's one coach in the league.
I think I have mine.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can guess yours. So, Stu, you like to have fun, but I also think you like to have respectable fun, and you like some professionalism. I'm gonna have two guesses. There's three names that I thought of.
Okay.
You. I feel like you're a Mike Tomlin guy. No?
Nah, that wasn't the first one I thought of.
Andy Reid.
No.
Sean McVay.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of was McVay. Yes.
Gotcha. See, now I'm trying to think. Who's the coach I would most want to work for? You know who I think my vibe would mesh with? I think Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I could see that.
Coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
He likes a big cup of coffee. I like a big cup of coffee. He's like a big burly meathead. Sometimes I'm a big burly meathead as well. I could see my energy meshing well with one Dan Campbell. Now, who's the coach you would not want to work with in the NFL? Who's the one guy that you would be like, yuck, I got to go work with that dude? Two names come to mind right away. Right away, instantly. Who would be your coach? Just wondering still.
Probably McCarthy.
I think McCarthy actually could be fun. I could see myself going to a bar, eating some barbecue, and slugging down a few drinks with Mike McCarthy. Probably get some good meals with Mike McCarthy. Sirianni.
I was between the two NFC East coaches there.
I need a coach, not a cheerleader. Okay? And then also, this could be unpopular. I think this guy's a good dude, but when he speaks, there's sometimes I just say, what the bleep is this guy saying? And he gets stuck sometimes in a tangent. Mike McDaniel, I think, would be tough to work with. But means I'd be on South Beach, means I'd be close to Joe's Stone Crabs, and that could be something that I'd be willing to tolerate. McDaniel, just if I keep on going to Joe's, and more Joe's. McDaniel's always been the coach. I feel like I'm on, like, with the inside joke, I'm just not getting it with that dude. Alrighty, what do we got cooking this week for overreaction, proper reactions, though?
All right, the Bills improved to 3-0 after last night's 47-10 spanking of the winless Jags, leading the NFL with a plus 64.
I made a weird noise, by the way. That wasn't a fart. That was my water bottle, just to be clear. You can see that on YouTube that I was drinking a water, but if you are
video
listening
evidence
in the car, you're like, whoa. Did Moist Mike just let one rip on the air?
They lead the NFL with a plus 64 margin of victory. Josh Allen moved to the head of the pack in MVP odds at plus 200 in some sports books. So overreaction or proper reaction, the Bills are the best bet to prevent a Chiefs three-peat.
So I think you got to go with an AFC team there. Like, I could argue an NFC team maybe, but that means they have to get to the NFC and then get to a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I think the Bills right now are the best bet to prevent the Chiefs three-peat. They've been close in all those playoff games. It wasn't like Cincinnati a few years ago where the Bengals walked into their house and just steamrolled them. But the Bills-Chiefs always gives you a classic heartbreaking game for the Buffalo Bills in the postseason. And for a while, Tom Brady and the Patriots would always get the best of Peyton Manning. And then one year, Peyton Manning got the best of Tom Brady, and the Colts went on to win the Super Bowl. That could happen. This could be the Peyton Manning year for Josh Allen. And if I look at the AFC right now, the other team that comes to mind are the Bengals. The Bengals are 0-3. They stink. They may not even make the playoffs. And the Texans, right? I think they're good, but are they ready to take the next step? That's a different conversation. The Jets, let's see the Jets play someone other than New England. Because before that, the first two games weren't all that stellar. So, yeah, I would say the Bills, they're playing team football. They're not walking on eggshells anymore because Stephon Diggs no longer in the building. I think they're the best bet to prevent a Chiefs three-peat. I know people could say the Ravens. Let's see the Ravens get above 500 first. So, yeah, that's a proper reaction.
The Vikings improved to 3-0 thanks to Sam Darnold and a suffocating defense. And the team did get some good news on Darnold's knee and expect him to start their key Week 4 matchup against the Packers. Darnold leads the NFL with touchdown passes with 8 and is third in QB rating. So overreaction or proper reaction, Darnold will lead the Vikings to the playoffs.
And it looks like he survived the injury. But when he was in Carolina, he got off to a decent start, if you recall. And he led the league actually in rushing touchdowns out of the gate. And then he got hurt and he missed some weeks and he was never really able to get back. So the injuries could be a concern with Sam Darnold. But I had 3 teams going into the year in the NFC North making the postseason. I had the Packers. I had the Lions. And I had the Bears. After 3 weeks, I say, yeah, you swap out the Bears and you put in the Minnesota Vikings. So I think Darnold can lead the Vikings to the playoffs. I would go a proper reaction. Ben Bozo in the YouTube chat says, can you afford Joe's on a Waterboy salary? If I'm a Waterboy for an NFL team, that's going to get me free Joe Stone crabs. I'm going to just say, hey, I'm a Waterboy for the Miami Dolphins. I'll be like, oh, go ahead. And also, I used to go to Joe's all the time. One of my close childhood friends lives in Coral Gables. So they go to Joe's like it's a diner. Just found this out. He told me his cousin is now the COO of Joe Stone Crabs.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So I never had a problem getting a reservation or getting in. I was, always have to pay. But I still have to pay now, But now when you know the COO's cousin, I think I'd be okay if I was on a Waterboy salary down in Miami. I think the toughest part of my job would just be trying to able to understand Mike McDaniel, quite frankly. All righty, what's the next question?
After another surprise 3-0 team is...
Wait, hold on. I just realized this. Billy Wolf makes a good point in the YouTube chat. You could just come with me, and I could say that you're Mike McDaniel. You could actually play the role of Mike McDaniel so I could understand you, and you'd be the coach because you're a Mike McDaniel lookalike.
You know what, though? He changed the look a little on me. He has like the more grown-out curly hair and the bigger shades. Like, I don't think it works as well as it did last year.
And also, he went more GQ.
He did.
Let me tell you, if you're a coach, I think you got to wear socks on an NFL sideline. I think I saw McDaniel not wearing socks, but
definitely.
Raheem Morris this past week.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, his pants were rolled up a bit, and he was definitely not wearing socks on the sideline. You got to wear socks if you're an NFL coach. That's just me. All right, what else we got cooking?
We have another surprise 3-0 team, and that's the Seahawks, who crushed the aforementioned Dolphins without Tua 24-3. Geno Smith is third in passing yards, and first-year head coach Mike Macdonald believes that they're just getting started.
I think the tape is going to tell the story. I mean, we're in a great position where we've done enough to win each game that we've played. There's a lot of great stuff on tape. But we're also at the beginning stages of this team and who we're going to become. And the guys know that. It's very clear when you watch the tape where we need to improve. And there's a great opportunity for us to improve. And we can be so much better.
So overreaction or proper reaction, the Seahawks will make the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I think that's an overreaction right now. They're 3-0. I like McDonald's a lot. I like that roster. I usually praise that roster. But let's see where they are when the competition picks up in intensity. They were not great up against Denver. They were not great up against New England. You beat the snot out of the Dolphins. They didn't even have Tua. These next few weeks, you got the Lions on Monday night. Good test for them. You play the Giants. They're no good. You then play San Francisco, Atlanta, Buffalo, the Rams. You have a bye week, and then you play San Francisco. Let's see where they are in middle of November. But, hey, give a lot of credit to McDonald right now, but I'm not ready to say that they're going to be a playoff team just yet.
The Jaguars seemed to be on a meteoric rise 2 years ago, but after starting last season 8-3, the team has lost 8 of their last 9 games, including this year's 0-3 start. Doug Peterson is just 18-19 overall since taking over for the train wreck that was Urban Meyer. So overreaction or proper reaction, this will be Doug Peterson's last season with the Jaguars.
Yeah, that's a proper reaction. You know, I got dragged a little bit, mildly dragged, last night on social media. So I'm just watching the game, and I'm just providing some commentary. And all I tweeted out, and it was like in the second quarter, I tweeted something out along the lines of, let me find it here, Doug Peterson is going to get himself fired in Jacksonville by the end of the year. And everyone's like, how about by the end of tonight? How about by halftime? So everyone had that same comment. I was just providing a little commentary. But yeah, I think he's done at the end of this year because I don't see this team turning it around. And this was a year where the owner expected this team to be really good. And just paid the quarterback, by the way, when he didn't need to, $275 million. Rushing to pay a quarterback. Never smart.
Rumors swirled all offseason that Davante Adams was unhappy in Vegas and wanted out, with many pointing to his desire to team back up with former Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers in New York with the Jets. Now, new video of Adams being visibly disgusted on the sideline during their Week 3 loss to the Panthers is reigniting that speculation that he wants out. So overreaction or proper reaction, Davante Adams will be dealt before the November 5th trade deadline.
I've said this every time this conversation has come up. He is not getting traded by the deadline. He will get traded after the season. So I will say, when you ask me, Davante Adams will be dealt before the November 5th trade deadline. That's an overreaction. And Jets fans, I appreciate your hustle. I do. But just because Antonio Pierce is saying people are making business decisions, I don't think that was intended to Davante Adams. Davante Adams looked PO'd in that game, but I don't think you could question Davante Adams' desire or his want to in that game. And that's what Antonio Pierce was questioning, whichever player he was talking about making a business decision. We need John Boy, right, to go through the tape and really find out which player made a business decision in that game on who Antonio Pierce was alluding to.
I don't think anyone wants to watch that tape. That is not fun tape to comb through.
Would you just bury that if you were a coach? Would you just take your guys out back, dig a hole, and just bury that game tape?
You almost have to, because they looked pretty not good against the Ravens, but they had a nice win. They might have backed into a win, fine, but at that point, you just kind of want to just move on because the schedule's still pretty easy.
You're a different coach than me. I'd be turning on that tape and I'd be cursing people out and mother bleeping people in my meeting.
Interesting.
For at least an hour. And I feel like Antonio Pierce is more of a coach like me than what Stu would be, where he just let everyone off the hook. And guys, let's have a team bonding activity and just bury the game tape. All right. Next question.
All right, last one. After making the Super Bowl in 2021, the Bengals have fallen short of expectations the last few years, falling in the AFC title game in 2022, and then missing the playoffs last season after Joe Burrow went down with injury. Now, after an 0-3 start, some are wondering if Zach Taylor's seat might be warming up. So overreaction or proper reaction, Zach Taylor should be on the hot seat.
Absolutely, that's a proper reaction. If this team misses the playoffs with a healthy Joe Burrow, the coach has got to go. But then don't be cheap and go bring in a big-time coach like a Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel. All right, that's overreaction, proper reaction. Ack, I got to ask you a question. I'm just seeing a video now for the first time, or I have potential to see it for the first time. I've not pressed play yet. But this video is of Hot Take Hickey. I guess he was taking batting practice at Citi Field. I don't know if this was from today. But he said, no Lindor tonight, no problem. I'm here to save the Mets season. And he tagged Steve Cohen, and it's him in the box getting batting practice thrown to him.
I'm going to assume it wasn't today. That's just my guess.
Okay. Well, Mets are out of town, so maybe we'll say, I don't know. I don't know how many pitches there are here, but there's a minute worth of this content. Mm-hmm. How many times do you think Hickey put the ball in play in a minute video that he put out?
It depends how many pitches he got, too. That's
yeah, just take a guess, though.
I'll go with
if I put an over-under out there.
Who is pitching to him?
That I don't know. Let's say 2.5.
I was going to say 3.
Okay, so you take the over. Mm-hmm. Now put the ball in play not something like you foul it back or something
no.
like that.
I say 3.
All right, we will do this live on the air. I'm watching this video now. First pitch was foul. All righty. Let's see the second
it was
pitch.
today because he's wearing the same sweatshirt. So.
Second pitch was foul. At least he's making contact. Third pitch, swing and a miss.
I thought he made contact there.
Fourth pitch, swing and a miss.
Yep.
Now hold on. I'll pause it. I don't know who's pitching. It looks like someone that the Mets supplied. So you think it'd be. I haven't seen a bad pitch yet. So you would think it's a competent body. So far, nothing has been put in play yet.
We have to know why he's taking batting practice.
I don't know.
It's not like just anybody.
Swing and a miss.
I think if you're a season ticket holder, you might.
I think that one was put in play. So there's one.
Fouled off?
Yeah, I think that was. It's tough to tell. Whoever took the video is doing a terrible job. That was foul off. So there's one. There may be 2 that have been put in play, but I think it was 1.
Look at Hickey. Is he? Does he have a wooden bat or aluminum?
Foul away. It looks like an aluminum bat. Foul away. He is feeble.
I didn't know Hickey was a lefty.
Oh, he smoked one to right.
Well, we think.
Yeah. So that's 2 at most. Jeez. You know what they say. If you can't play sports, you can talk about sports. The Hot Take Hickey Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Update time. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Hall of Famer Brett Favre has Parkinson's disease. He made the revelation testifying at a congressional hearing on welfare misspending and reform. Former Packers great has had a lengthy concussion history and mentioned his diagnosis while discussing Prevacus, a company that had been trying to make a concussion drug. The Bengals not only fell to 0-3 last night, they have now lost offensive tackle Trent Brown for the season after he suffered a torn patella tendon and will undergo surgery. Saints Pro Bowl center Eric McCoy headed for surgery on his groin. He'll miss the next 6 to 8 weeks, while Mike Tomlin said the Steelers enter Week 4 in the same place. Russell Wilson will be limited in practice, and Justin Fields in place right now as the starter. Dolphins quarterback Skylar Thompson is day-to-day with a chest injury. The Tigers, the hottest team in baseball, winners of 12 of their last 15 to move into the second wild card spot in the American League, a half game in front of the Royals. Detroit holding off Tampa Bay today 2-1 behind a terrific performance from Tarek Skubal, who went 7 scoreless innings and allowed 2 hits and struck out 7. The Royals will take on the Nationals in Washington tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
And this portion of the Zach Gelb Show is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam and just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. Alrighty, it's time for our superstar shout-outs as we take a look back of another week of the NFL and college football season. We will give you a NFL player, an NFL coach, a college football player, a college coach that we would like to shout out. I will start first, and then we will hear from Stu. My college football coach that we will give a shout out to first is Kalani Sitake, the head football coach at BYU. The Cougs are now a top 25 team in the nation, ranked at 22nd. And last week they were going up against number 13 Kansas State. And Kansas State was coming off a great victory where they allowed a touchdown to Arizona right out of the gate, and then they scored 31 unanswered points. I'm a big fan of Chris Kleiman, but his team just absolutely was a dud Saturday as Kalani Sitake's squad won 38-9. BYU in the Big 12 now. They are 4-0 to start off their season, and they should get a victory this weekend as they have a noon Eastern time game as they go to Waco, Texas, and they play the Baylor Bears, or as one former Infinity Sports Network personality would say, Waco, Texas, that they thought that was the way that you say it. But the BYU Cougars, Kalani Sitake is my college football coach that I'm going to give a shout out to this week. Stu?
All right, mine is Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel. Went into Oklahoma, and we know it's an Oklahoma team that isn't really the top 5, top 10 Oklahoma that we're used to, but against his former team, going in there, just absolutely dominated them, especially defensively. They have 2 big games coming up, Alabama and Georgia, within the next month. Those are obviously going to be the key games, but just to go into Norman and have that type of victory really impressed me as one of the best teams in the country, honestly.
Yeah, and you look at Tennessee, I think they're a national championship contender. We'll have Georgia and Alabama play inside the SEC this weekend. You got Texas, who's right there as well. We know Ohio State is also in contention, but I agree with you. The defense, to me, was the most impressive because we knew their offense was really good. Question was, what were you going to get defensively? And you have to pull the quarterback in that game for Oklahoma, and he's not even going to start this week. That was a heck of a job for Josh Heupel. You saw the emotion afterwards, right? He won a national championship there as a player. He got fired as an offensive coordinator, and you saw how much it meant to him to go get a victory in his old home. Okay, let's go to the college football player I want to shout out. Going into Nebraska, Illinois, everyone was talking about Dylan Raiola. And it looked like Nebraska was going to win the game after the first half, but Luke Altmaier had a heck of a game. 21-27 on the road in a tough place to play in Lincoln, Nebraska for 215 yards and also had 4 passing touchdowns in the contest. He had a sensational performance. The Illini, they have Penn State this upcoming weekend, and Altmaier comes over. Now he's in his second year with the program. He was with Ole Miss before that. To start off the season, Altmaier's completed nearly 72% of his passes for 862 yards, 10 touchdowns, and haven't thrown an interception yet. So Luke Altmaier is my superstar standout this week in college football. Yep.
Mine is Miami quarterback Cam Ward. They play USF. They put up 50 points. He throws for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. And for a Miami program that's been obviously a little down since the early 2000s, they finally have a quarterback, probably the best quarterback they've had all century. He's a Heisman contender. They're a team that can maybe win the ACC, maybe make the playoffs, and we'll see what happens after that.
Right now, I would say he's expected to win the Heisman, and Miami is expected to win the ACC. I'm not saying that definitely will happen, but I think that's the expectation now. I feel weird leaving out Travis Hunter because he had 7 receptions for 130 yards and then popped out that football to force the game-winning fumble. And for college coaches, I also... I'll do one extra this week. I'm in a giving mood. Kyle Whittingham, without your quarterback Cam Rising again, and you're going up against Oklahoma State, and your defense, Ollie Gordon, someone's got to check out with him. He's been terrible to start off this season. And anywhere Kyle Whittingham goes, doesn't matter the conference, all that dude does is win. So I'll give him a shout out too. All right, NFL coach. Who would have thought after losing Jordan Love and being 0-1 that Green Bay would have won back-to-back games? They beat Indianapolis, and then they played Tennessee the following week, and they didn't just beat the Titans. They beat them 30-14. And Malik Willis, he was left for dead in his NFL career. His young career looked like it was over. And look what Matt LaFleur has been able to do the last 2 weeks with Malik Willis. He was 13-19 up against his old team for 202 yards and a touchdown. And then, by the way, led the team in rushing. 6 carries, 73 yards, and a score. So my superstar standout this week in the coaching world for the NFL is going to be Matt LaFleur, who has the Pack 2-1, and they've won the last 2 games without Jordan Love.
Mine is Seahawks coach Mike McDonald. Now, I know they haven't really played a tough schedule. They beat the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Dolphins without Tua. But, hey, they are 3-0. It is a new coach in a new place, a team that not a lot of people had competing in the NFC West. They are 3-0 at top of it right now, and I think he's done a really nice job in his first season there.
For my extra one this week, I'm actually going to go with coordinator here. And it's going to be Brian Flores. That defense of the Minnesota Vikings, I know we're all talking about Sammy Slinging Darnold and how many points they put up on the board, but that defense held C.J. Stroud to 7 points as the Vikings had a 34-7 win. All righty, my player. I think this is pretty obvious. I'm a big fan of this guy. I wish he was the quarterback of my team. And I was wishing that the Patriots had the 2nd overall pick of the draft. It is Jayden Daniels. Commanders fans, you finally have hope. Daniel Snyder's no longer there, and you look like you found your guy at quarterback. They got a favorable schedule the next 6 to 7 weeks. Now we'll see how many games they can win, but in his third career start, 21-23 for 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, and had 12 carries for 39 yards and a score. And we saw that touchdown pass that he had to Terry McLaurin on third down to just end the game. Jayden Daniels, superstar, shout out this week in the NFL.
All right, mine is Andy Dalton. Comes off the bench, torches my Raiders.
Rifle.
That's right. It just absolutely dominated them. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And before last night was the only player in the league so far this season, only quarterback to have a 300-yard passing and 3 passing touchdown game. Like he absolutely dominated the defense of my Raiders, and I think he deserves it.
Revenge game this week. Revenge game. Panthers, Bengals. Ooh,
That's right.
Revenge. You hear that, by the way, Stu, in the background? MVP. 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 My extra credit player this week, Josh Allen. 23 of 30. How do you like me now, Stephon Diggs? 263 yards, 4 touchdowns, led the team in rushing with 44 yards, and also the most impressive part, when you don't have to worry about coddling other players and worrying about the feelings, those 4 touchdown passes went to 4 different players. Shakir, Kincaid, Johnson, and Keon Coleman. So that's our superstar shout-outs this week for NFL and college football. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You can always find me on Twitter, Instagram. Give me a follow at Zach Gelb, Zachgelb. When we come on back, the 49ers are the walking wounded right now. Can Brock Purdy navigate them through this stretch? And also, Brock Purdy is even banged up right now. So we'll talk some 49ers on the other side. Also still to come, Brian Mitchell is going to join us off the big-time Commanders victory. We'll talk about Jayden Daniels. We'll also go around the NFC East with him. As the Cowboys looking like crap, the Eagles look like they don't have a coach, and the Giants, they got to win. We'll see what the Giants, though, could do moving forward the rest of the way with the excellent play of Malik Neighbors. Coming on back, Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll tap into that Commanders-Bengals game once again coming up 20 minutes from now with Brian Mitchell. We'll also go around the NFC East with him. So, the next 4 weeks of the football season, I have a lot of things that are on my mind. But one player in particular, I want to see if he could carry his team, and that is Brock Purdy, who needs to rock out with his Brock out and look Purdy awesome. It's big Brock time. Now, Brock Purdy in their loss up against the Rams actually had a good game. He was 22-30 for 292 yards, had 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and also ran for 41 yards. So I'm not going to crush Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy played a good game, but he's got to win. Got to win that game, especially with the lead that they had up against a Rams team that was on the verge of going into their coffin, and now they're out of the coffin, and they should be 2-2 after this weekend. They were on the verge of being an 0-3 football team. But this is now a team in San Francisco where even though they get the benefit of the doubt, and they've been to 2 Super Bowls in recent memory, a bunch of NFC title games, and we've seen before the injuries pile up for San Francisco, and they've been able to navigate the rough tide. This is now a moment in their season at 1-2 where I want to see where we feel about them 4 weeks from now. because you know McCaffrey is out. You know Debo is out for the next few weeks. And yesterday, this was in the span of 7 minutes on the Twitter feed of Adam Schefter. 49ers defensive tackle Javon Hargrave suffered a partial triceps tear Sunday and is now likely out for the rest of the season. That was tweet 1. Then, a minute later, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy has back soreness and now will be considered day-to-day. And then the final tweet in this 3-tweet stretch in the span of 7 minutes. And to top it off, 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey is seeing a specialist in Germany regarding his Achilles tendonitis. Now, the Hargrave injury stinks. We know how good of a player he is. But we have closure, I guess, on that because he's out, likely out for the season. When you have a partial tricep tear, no one's expecting you to come back. The Brock Purdy back soreness, it's something you monitor, but I don't think you are freaking out about it right now. But that could get ugly quick if the offensive line doesn't hold up. But Stu, I'll tell you, out of those three, the injury I'm most concerned about, and I know Jordan Mason has looked solid and you could plug and play in San Francisco, and Jordan Mason to start off this season actually has the second most rushing yards in the NFL with 324. He's put up a $147 against the Jets, put up 100 yards against the Vikings, and 77 in the loss on Sunday up against the Rams. But even though Jordan Mason has displayed he is competent, Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, is the preeminent running back in the league. And it's actually a little disrespectful to just call him a running back because he is one of the best non-quarterbacks on the offensive side of the ball in the league, if not the best non-quarterback on the offensive side of the ball in the league. So McCaffrey, who we knew had an Achilles injury and a calf injury, to now hear, Stu, that he's going to Germany to see a specialist regarding his Achilles tendonitis. Now, I know athletes that have resources like Christian McCaffrey I can't relate to. He also had McCaffrey and his now wife. Remember, they were complaining at the Super Bowl how they couldn't afford a luxury box for the Super Bowl, but he's able to get the tender loving care of going to Germany to see a specialist for his Achilles tendonitis. That's the one that's the most concerning to me. Because whenever you have to go to Germany to see a different doctor and a specialist to figure out what's going on with your Achilles injury, which is for a running back, right? How many times do players say, whether you're a corner, a wide receiver, a running back, even though you'd rather not have an injury, and obviously this is like, what disease would you rather have? But this is basically the way that it plays out. You'd much rather tear your ACL than have an Achilles injury, because the Achilles injury is tougher to recover from. So we are talking about a running back who has suffered a ton of lumps and bruises through his career. A running back that I know he was healthy recently, but it seems like he's, for most years, in and out of the lineup. He's now dealing with, I guess, this mysterious Achilles injury that is forcing him to go to Germany to see some specialists for Achilles tendonitis. I'm just going to say it, Stu. I can't expect anything out of Christian McCaffrey for the rest of the season. Like, I think he'll come back. I think he will give it a go. But inevitably, at another point in this season, when this goes back to the preseason, right? When he had an injury suffered, and then you find out, okay, he's going on IR. Even when he's eligible to return, I don't think he's returning. And I think this is going to be a lingering issue and a season-long issue for Christian McCaffrey. And there's going to be more time spent on the sideline than there is on the field. And I guess if you're a 49ers fan, you just hope that by the time the playoffs come around, because it's Super Bowl or bust for them, but by the time that the playoffs come around, that he'll be, I can't even say 100%, but like at 80%. Because this feels just really gloomy and dreary, and it's so unfortunate. But when we're talking about, Stu, a player having to go to Germany to see a specialist for Achilles tendonitis, and this was an issue that has now been going on for a few months, I have a tough time really being able to expect anything of significance for a long period of stretch for Christian McCaffrey this season with the San Francisco 49ers, and it's really a shame.
Yeah, anytime you hear the words Achilles and mystery in the same phrase or sentence, that's not what you want. And
not good.
It's not good, and they rely on him. He's obviously, both in the passing game and the running game. I hate to say it, I don't know if they can get to a Super Bowl without him. I just don't. I know they have a lot of talent.
Okay.
I know the NFC is wide open. There's not one team in the NFC that jumps out to me and scares me that can get in their way. But if they don't have McCaffrey, plus Ayuk not being, he's been horrible so far this season.
Do you think John Lynch is sitting back saying, maybe we should have traded him to the Steelers? When Jawan Jennings pops off in that game for 11 receptions for 175 yards and 3 tutties, and you just paid Brandon Ayuk $30 million a year to have 5 receptions for 48 yards, and he's been an absolute zero this year through the first 3 games of the season. 20 targets, 11 receptions, and 119 yards, and he dropped the touchdown, which Peyton Manning killed him, and he hasn't had a touchdown this year. Whew. You think there's some buyer's remorse there by John Lynch through the first 3 games of the season?
Yeah, there might be, because they gave him a good chunk of change, and they could have had other assets if they traded him.
I like the way that you said that. They gave him a good chunk of change as if he was looking in the couch and found 50 cents to go help get a bagel on the street corner in New York City.
It was a lot more than that.
By the way, today I got an everything bagel.
Okay.
Egg whites, bacon well done, and I got a large black iced coffee. I went to my favorite bagel shop in my area. Like, there's other, bodegas and delis that you could go get, a bacon, egg, and cheese. I didn't get cheese this morning. But I got egg whites. I got well-done bacon on an everything bagel from, a bougie bagel shop that has really good... I wanted, a legit New York bagel today with a large black cold brew. What do you think it was for a large black cold brew and then a well-done bacon with egg whites on an everything bagel? How much do you think that did run me for?
Gonna guess $12.
I wish.
Wow, more than that, huh?
I wish. Hold on. Let me get the Face ID here.
Oh, boy.
Let me just make sure that my cell phone is not being able to be seen on the YouTube screen. Just, I don't want Ben Bozo hacking into my credit cards and just going on a spending spree because I did a tap and pay. It was $18.
Oh, my God.
And 51 cents. I could have used that chunk of change. But, come on. That was crazy.
For a bagel and a large cold brew, that's...
With egg whites and well-done bacon.
Yeah.
Salt, pepper, ketchup, too. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
That's crazy.
It's a lot of money. Contract negotiations coming on up. Show me the money, baby. Come on, Alrighty. But getting back to it. I look at the Niners the next 4 weeks. The 2 players with the most amount of pressure on them, and they play the Patriots this Sunday. They should be able to smother the Patriots if they put Samter, Stu, and myself out there on the field. But they play the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and the Chiefs. So Patriots stink. Cardinals, we'll know more about the Cardinals after this weekend. Because the Arizona Cardinals got a lot of praise after smothering the Rams. They played a good first half up against the Bills. And they lost to the Lions. I never thought they were going to win that game with, I thought going in they would win. But when you watch the game, you never thought when you were watching the game that they were going to be able to find a way to pull a rabbit out of the hat. If they don't beat the Commanders this week, and the Commanders just had a great win up against the Bengals, I think people start to be out on the Arizona Cardinals. But the Niners' next 4 games, Patriots, Cardinals, at the Seahawks who are 3-0, and then the Chiefs that are 3-0. The 2 players that need to show up, the 2 players that the most pressure is on them, it's Brock Purdy and it's Brandon Ayuk. Debo out. We'll see when he comes back. McCaffrey out. Who knows with Achilles tendonitis when he's coming on out. You got Hargrave now likely done for the season. Brock Purdy dealing with a little bit of a back injury. Could he play through it? You need Brock Purdy, who had a good game last week, to go carry them to to some victories here in these next 4 weeks. And Brandon Ayuk, brother, you got to get in the end zone. You know what? I think you got some good value actually this week. Now, here's the thing, the tricky part. That could be a sucker bet because Christian Gonzalez is a heck of a corner. And with Debo out, you know that Christian Gonzalez is going to be covering and shadowing Brandon Ayuk. But I bet you with how bad of a performance Brandon Ayuk is off to start the season, anytime touchdown Brandon Ayuk this week could be a part of the Zach Gelb card. By the way, I had such an easy bet last night. It was like, you know what? It covered my bagel still. That bagel was free today. It was 20 to win 90 last night on a parlay. And it was Jamar Chase getting in the end zone and James Cook getting into the end zone. I didn't even have to break a sweat on that bet. That hit very early on because Jamar Chase scored the first touchdown for the Bengals and James Cook scored the first touchdown for the Buffalo Bills. But this week, you want to get an early preview and a look ahead. Patriots, 49ers, I bet you there's going to be some good value. I don't think the anytime touchdown number is up yet. You know, at least on my app, they come out later in the week. But I bet you Brandon Ayuk can get him at a favorable odds this week because he didn't have a touchdown through the first 3 weeks of the season. But, hey, Brock Purdy, I think you're a good quarterback. I think you are a better quarterback than what people give you credit to. You know, he just has it, Brock Purdy, and he's a gutsy player, and he put a good game last week. And I said going into the season, I thought he was the 10th best quarterback in football. You want to show me that you're worth the money that the Niners are going to inevitably pay you? You go prove your worth these next 4 weeks with your team not at 100%. And Brandon Ayuk, you got paid. Now you got to have a pulse because your face the first 3 weeks of the season, it's been slapped on a milk carton, and you've been MIA. So you're worried about the 49ers. They're 1-2 to start off the season, and 3 weeks in, these injuries, there's not an injury here or there. They're piling up. You know, that training facility looks like a hospital wing, quite frankly, with the San Francisco 49ers. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You could always give me a follow on Instagram, Twitter, X, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Brian Mitchell is going to join us on the other side. We'll talk about his Hall of Fame potential chances, also the new kickoff rule, and in addition to some guy by the name of Jayden Daniels. You may have heard of him. He was a star last night as the Cincinnati Bengals, they are 0-3 to start off the season. The Commanders are 2-1. And what a performance that was on Monday Night Football in the doubleheader, as that was the second game. Jayden Daniels was magnificent. And now Commanders fans are believing they got their franchise quarterback. B. Mitch will join us next. This portion of the show, the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, is brought to you by Sleeper. Football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. And Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use my promo code SCORE, that's SCORE, and your first deposit will be doubled with credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We should be able to connect with Brian Mitchell coming up in a few moments. Big win last night for the Commanders. The Bengals are 0-3, and it looks like Jayden Daniels, of course, is the real deal with his performance. Taking a brief look ahead at the college football slate for this weekend. Just some quarterbacks that I think are under pressure and need to have a big performance. Notre Dame, this is kind of like a last stand. I know that they're 3-1. They lost to Northern Illinois. This is a top 15 matchup. Or no, excuse me, top 20 matchup because Notre Dame's in at 16. Louisville is 15, and Jeff Brom's done a nice job there. Riley Leonard's got to have a big game this week. You're in South Bend, Indiana. It's been an ugly start to the season with that Northern Illinois game. I got to see more out of Notre Dame, and the highlight of their season just can't be a Week 1 victory up against Texas A&M. Oklahoma and Auburn. We have seen a quarterback change here for Oklahoma, as we saw that their starting quarterback got benched at halftime, and now he's not going to be starting this week, as Mike Hawkins is going to be getting the start. I was a little bit surprised. I know when they made the move last weekend, okay, it makes sense with the way that the game played out, and the offensive line has been terrible, and Tennessee did a great job. But remember, Dylan Gabriel was there last year in Oklahoma. And the way that it was kind of explained by Chris Plank, his best guess, was that Gabriel thought he was going to the NFL, didn't like his NFL grade, then said to Oklahoma, I'm ready to come on back. And they're like, oh, well, we kind of wanted to go to Jackson Arnold So you're going to have to battle it out with Jackson Arnold. And then 4 games into the season, or 3.5 games into the season, you bench Jackson Arnold, and Michael Hawkins comes in 11 of 18 for 132 yards and a touchdown, also had 22 yards on the ground. And it's one of those spots now where he's going to continue as the quarterback. But the reason why I say he's under pressure is how long can you continue under quarterback? And you go up against an Auburn team. We'll get to their coach, Hugh Freeze, coming up later in a news brief. They lost to Arkansas, and he was embarrassing post-game. So this is a favorable spot to debut a new quarterback here and have him making that start. And then finally, the biggest game of the weekend. And we'll talk about this all throughout the week. You know, we got 2 really good night games coming up this weekend with Illinois and Penn State, a top 25 matchup, a top 20 matchup. But the biggest one, of course, is number 2 Georgia up against number 4 Alabama. And Georgia is a 2-point favorite. I say this on a Tuesday. Georgia only being a 2-point favorite, and this is maybe just the way that I bet, and some people won't like it. I feel like Vegas is begging you there to lay the 2 points with Georgia. Georgia hasn't lost a regular season game in forever. They had a sloppy performance up against Kentucky. They've had a week off. Alabama's had a week off. I think a lot of people are going to be on Georgia, even though, right, usually the home team is a 3-point favorite, and Tuscaloosa, the game's in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Georgia's the favorite, so that says something. But when this is a 2-point spread in favor of Georgia and the way that Georgia's been so dominant, I think a lot of people are going to be on Georgia in this game. If I'm making the bet right now, I'm plusing the 2 points with Alabama, and quite frankly, I'd probably just put Alabama on the money line, whatever the money line is. I like Alabama in this game on Tuesday. Now, we'll see as the week goes on, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, what does occur. We shall see. But right now, if I had to make that pick, I'm taking Alabama. How weird is that to say, Stu? Alabama at home to have a upset victory up against Georgia. That's one way to say. Is that considered in your mind an upset? Alabama over Georgia? Like, there's upset. Like, when I think of the word upset, it's like a team that is definitely expected to lose, and then they find a way to get the job done. Can I say that Alabama is definitely expected to lose? No, I think they're going to win. So I look at that game. There's different levels of upsets. That one being referred to in Alabama is home at Bryant Denny Stadium, and it being considered an upset. Just, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way in the word upset.
No, it's not quite Appalachian State, Michigan.
It's not Boise State taking down Oklahoma.
No. There's different levels to it. It's an upset, but it's not an upset.
Here's the fascinating question. Which quarterback's under more pressure in that game? Is it Carson Beck, the quarterback of Georgia, or is it Jalen Milroe, the quarterback of Alabama? How would you answer that, Stu, before I give you my answer?
I would say Carson Beck, because I feel like Georgia was the team that's expected to win this year. Plus, he has the NFL. Like, a lot of people think he's going to be the first pick or the first quarterback taken. So I think right now for this year, this game, I think there's more pressure on Carson Beck.
And also, you had the lackluster performance up against Kentucky when they were lucky to win, and I don't know what Mark Stoops was doing. It's 4th down. You're Kentucky football, for crying out loud. I know you've had 2 10-win seasons there, Coach, and you've done a really good job, Mark Stoops, at Kentucky, even though A&M fans will say, no, I don't want Mark Stoops as the coach, because they're dopey and they can't identify a good football coach if it smacked them right in the face. But that was a game where Mark Stoops, he coached afraid, and it cost his team when he should have been coaching with nothing to lose. I get your point, what you're saying. It's a statement game from Carson Beck, right? Stetson Bennett was the guy for 2 years there, even though he never really got the national praise because it was like the program. Oh, and Stetson Bennett's basically just like the game manager. That's the way that it was perceived, and thankfully Stetson Bennett ended up getting an invite to New York for the Heisman Trophy. And it's weird to knock Georgia because last year they were undefeated in the regular season. Their first loss happened in the SEC championship game in what ended up being Nick Saban's final SEC championship game, which we didn't know at the time. But for Georgia, I think people walk into the season, they know Carson Beck is good. You know, I had him or Dylan Gabriel winning the Heisman Trophy. This is the moment where Carson Beck, after an amp performance 2 weeks ago, you're right, there's a lot to prove where he needs to go dominate. But my answer here is actually Jalen Milroe. And here's why. I don't think people realize how great Jalen Milroe can be yet. Like, yeah, I get it. He was sluggish to start off last year. And he got pulled in that game early. And then he didn't start, and then they put him back in. And I thought that was the first time Saban kind of heard the outside noise and let it impact him, which should have been a sign, maybe Saban is thinking about stepping on out and bowing out at the end of the year. But then he came back, and he just improved week in and week out. And I think people look at him as a running quarterback first, and his mobility is incredible. But that arm is actually a lot better than I think the perceived notion is of the arm of Jalen Milroe. And I said this now probably for the 3,000th time, that Saban leaving obviously is a huge loss for Alabama. Duh. But they've made a home run hire in Kalen DeBoer, who is an offensive wizard. And we've seen his offensive abilities in every stop he's been. So I look at whether it was Sioux Falls, Fresno State, Washington, and what he did for Michael Penix Jr., and I really think you're going to see a different level of Jalen Milroe this year. And I was someone where a lot of people were like, yeah, Alabama make the playoffs. I'm like, I think that standard's too low for Alabama. Like, for DeBoer to have a successful season, yes, he needs to make the playoff. You missed the playoff in a 4-team format, first year on the job at Alabama, you're not going to get crushed. But if you miss it on a 12-team format, people will lose a lot of confidence in Kalen DeBoer. He's making the playoff. This is my national championship game. I had Georgia defeating Alabama. I think it was by a score of 27-17. So I think we'll see this matchup again. We'll see if we see it in the SEC championship game, but I think we'll see it in the national championship game because you still got Texas right in the mix in the SEC, Tennessee in the mix in the SEC. You don't know how that's going to play out. So it's not a lock that we'll see this again in the SEC championship game, but I do think we'll see it in the national championship game again. And I think it's going to be Georgia looking to avenge their regular season loss to Alabama. And I put more pressure on Jalen Milroe because I want to see the arm be on full display. And that wide receiver for Alabama, by the way, the 17-year-old Ryan Williams, he already started to break out, and we've already seen what he's been able to do, and he got some national spotlight last week up against Wisconsin. But, geez, this is a spot to really, really, really put yourself on the map. So, early on, I like Alabama this week, and I do think there's a little bit more pressure on Milroe than Beck, even though, right, Carson Beck, you go either way on that. But some other players to watch out this week where I think there's pressure on. It's Michael Hawkins Jr. now getting the start, and then also Riley Leonard. You have any confidence? Like Notre Dame this week? See, I saw Boyle. I love Pat Boyle, but he could be such a sports fraud sometimes. So early in the season, he's sitting here saying how great Notre Dame is going to be, and I told him, you're crazy. And then after that loss to Northern Illinois, I had to talk him off the ledge, and he's like, the season's over, fire everybody. And I said, you could still make the playoff if you just don't lose another game this season. And even if you maybe lose one more, like a 2-loss Notre Dame team, after you lose to Northern Illinois, I wouldn't love putting them in. But depending on how that other loss is, it's still on the table in a 12-team format. And Boyle's like, nope, I'm done. And then Notre Dame beats Purdue 66-7 and Miami of Ohio 28-3. And I saw him in the hallway, and he goes, they're not losing another game in the regular season. So how about that? But Jeff Brom did a really good job last year at Louisville. Now it's the second season. They did a good job defeating Georgia Tech the other week. I can't really evaluate them off Austin Peay and then Jackson State. But do you have confidence, Stu, you being a Notre Dame fan, that they could get the job done this weekend up against Louisville once again at Touchdown Jesus?
Not really. I mean, so Riley Leonard, they absolutely dominated Purdue. Purdue is not a good football team. They're terrible. And even though they had the nice 28-3 win this weekend, it wasn't that, like, he could run. Riley Leonard could run. I don't think there's any question about that. But this passing game is still a mess. The offensive line is They have like 3 starters already hurt. The offensive line isn't the prototypical Notre Dame offensive line. I just don't trust this offense, especially to pass the game against the better teams like a Louisville, like a USC. I have a hard time thinking they're going to go 11-1. I think 9-3 is probably the most likely option at this point. Riley Leonard, though, doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence.
I think this is a close game. I think it could go either way. I really think it's a flip of a coin, but I'll trust Jeff Brom now a little bit more than Marcus Freeman.
That's fair.
But I don't know. After you lose to Northern Illinois, and Northern Illinois just lost to Buffalo, so I guess the magic has worn off on them a little bit. But I don't know how you go walk in and really feel all that great in any Notre Dame game, really, the rest of the season.
But even against Miami of Ohio, it's like they just couldn't. First quarter, they couldn't move the ball at all. And then they, like I said, he had a couple big runs. The running game had some good things, but that's against Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, I never understood the Riley Leonard hype. Like at Duke, I was never blown away by him, and he had to deal with some injuries. And the quarterback they had last year, Sam Hartman, was a better quarterback than Riley Leonard. So I didn't understand why people were trying to advance forward with Notre Dame this year when I thought the team got worse. And just because they expand the playoff to 12 teams doesn't mean that your team's going to be that much better, even if you got into the playoff. It's just a system that ended up changing in college football. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take a timeout. Update time first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Hall of Famer Brett Favre revealed during a congressional hearing today that he has Parkinson's disease. Favre made the disclosure during testimony in which he said he lost money on an investment for Prevacus, a company that was developing a concussion drug. The company's founder pleaded guilty to wire fraud, admitting he used the state of Mississippi's welfare money to pay off gambling and other debts. It has been a rough start for the Bengals, who are now 0-3, and it's going to be a little more difficult with a big injury on the offensive line, with Trent Brown done for the season after suffering a torn patellar tendon that will require surgery. And the Saints have lost Pro Bowl center Eric McCoy for up to 8 weeks due to a groin injury that also will require surgery. Mike Tomlin said he wants Justin Fields walking in tomorrow, prepared to start a 4th straight game. Russell Wilson still nursing a calf injury and will likely be limited in practice tomorrow. Skylar Thompson of the Dolphins is day-to-day after a chest injury on Sunday. Baseball this afternoon, the Tigers have taken over the second wild card in the American League with a 2-1 victory over the Rays. They're 12th in the last 15 games. Tarek Skubal went 7 scoreless innings, allowed 2 hits, walked 1, and struck out 7. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Brian Mitchell's going to join us right now. You can hear him weekdays in the middays on 106.7 The Fan. The big story, as there's many today, but the Commanders are 2-1. The Bengals are 0-3. And Jayden Daniels walked into the jungle last night, and he opened up a can of whoop-ass. 21 of 23 in the game for 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also led the Commanders in rushing, having a rushing scoring going for 39 yards on the ground. And now joining us is a man that played for the organization, was around a bunch of teams in the NFC East, besides those drama Dallas choking Cowboys, which we'll get to in a bit as well. He has the most total return yards in the history of the NFL. And he's our pal, Brian Mitchell. Brian, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
I've been good. How you doing, man?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. So how do you put it into words what you saw last night from the second overall pick in the NFL draft from this past year in Jayden Daniels and what he was able to do up against the Bengals?
Well, it's kind of hard to put it into words, but after watching him all training camp, he's been that type of guy in training camp. And you understand a young guy goes out there and they may not get it all the time, but last night, everything just came together for him. Everything he tried worked. He had 2 missed passes, but the whole game, it seemed like he had a control over it. Joe Burrow is Mr. Cool, but he was even cooler than Joe last night.
And how about that throw to Terry McLaurin? And I feel elated for Terry McLaurin. That's a big-time play. It's third down. It was awesome to see Terry McLaurin and Jayden Daniels hook up there for the score, but what makes it even more awesome is now Terry McLaurin could actually go to work knowing that he has someone that's more than competent at the quarterback position.
Well, he did that earlier this year. You know, they had the same type of play they were playing against. I think it was the Jets, and the call for him to throw the ball to the open guy. They had a cover zero out there, and he went to De'Ami Brown. He looked out and he saw Terry out there, and he knew Terry one-on-one had already beaten the guys early for 51 yards. He went right back to him with a guy barreling down right in his face, took the hit, but he delivered the ball. And I think when we went to Miami, they had a competition, the quarterbacks and the quarterback coaches throwing the ball into the trash can at the back of the end zone. He was the only one that hit it into the trash can. He did it twice. And last night was a perfect throw, dropping it right where he needed to drop it.
How surprised were you what you saw from the Bengals? That's a big spot for them. They were 0-2, now 0-3. Burrow and company, right? I kind of thought they did their job on offense, but that defense was awesome a week ago up against the Chiefs. They made Patrick Mahomes look human, and it still wasn't good enough, and that defense couldn't get out of their own way up against Jayden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury.
Well, it's like some teams just have other teams' numbers. And then when I look at Joe and the Cincinnati Bengals, they play Kansas City great all the time, just like we normally play against Philadelphia. And I think the ultimate thing is they played that game, and their defensive back started to run his mouth a little bit. And I think Washington came in with the mindset that, we're going to show them what we're capable of. And Terry McLaurin, who hadn't been involved that much into the offense, he got involved big time last night. 4 receptions, 100 yards at 25 yards per catch. When you have a guy with the capability of a Terry, you have a guy that can deliver the ball as consistently as Jayden Daniels, good things happen for you.
How far are you willing to go now with this Commanders team? They're 2-1 to start the season. They lose to the Bucs, then they beat the Giants, they beat the Bengals. What do you think is fair to expect out of this squad the rest of the way?
Well, to be honest with you, I still expect them to go out there and they're trying to build a foundation. I don't believe this year that they were trying to go out there and compete at a certain high level. But if it happens to start happening while you're playing, you keep pushing for it. Jayden Daniels, you want to make sure he developed properly. But he seems to have developed and already has that, and he's now beginning to ascend. I believe a lot of the players on the team are going to gain more confidence in him and in themselves. So this is a year that you're supposed to just go out there and try to build. But if the competition on a competitive level comes in early, you're not going to stiff arm it. You're going to try to welcome that in and play as hard as you can. So I don't know what the exact number would be as far as a record, but I believe that they're going to be a little better than what they thought.
Yeah, I'm not saying this will definitely happen, but I don't think it's crazy if they could go get a wild card spot this year and be a 9-8 football team. Like the schedule the next 6 weeks, they play the Cardinals, the Browns, the Ravens, the Panthers, the Bears, and the Giants. I'm not saying they're winning all those games, but there's probably only one game there that you look and say, hey, they're probably not going to win that one, and that's in Baltimore up against the Ravens. So in the NFC, to go get that final wild card spot, 9-8 is a possibility.
It definitely is. I felt this year they could go 8-9, 9-8 possibly. And if that happens to get you in the playoffs, it does. You just want to get there. It's not necessarily how you get there, but the fact that you get there. And I believe that this team, they've added another team that goes into the wild card now, which makes it a little easier for people to get into the playoffs. But the ultimate thing is when you finally get a guy at the helm at that quarterback position who can play as well as Jayden plays, has the ability that he has, the sky's the limit at that point.
Brian Mitchell here with us. We know that Dan Quinn is a professional coach. I know he didn't win a Super Bowl in Atlanta, and people remember how he lost that Super Bowl, but he's a good football coach in this league. I think there was a big question about Cliff Kingsbury. Good offensive mind, but his teams usually start strong and then they tail off at the end of the season. So far, it's only 3 games, but Daniels has been very impressive. How about a minute or two on Cliff Kingsbury?
Well, Cliff has come in and he admitted that, when he first came here into the NFL and he went out with his offense, all he had was what he had, the air raid offense. And he started to run the ball effectively. You look when he was there in Arizona, Connor ran the ball effectively in his offense as well. But now he has a lot more influences. Brian Johnson from the Eagles. He also have Anthony Lynn on his football team. When you begin to get those other influences into it, now I don't necessarily believe it's just Cliff Kingsbury offense. It's a new Washington Commanders offense where a lot of people have put some influence to it, which is going to affect some people because they don't know everything that's going to be happening. And Cliff is now, I think he was trying to bring Jayden along slowly, like most teams are going to do when you have a young quarterback out there. But Jayden is the type of guy where he absorbs everything. He wants to learn. He learns a lot quicker than those others, where I believe this offense can be a step ahead of where they even expected it to be.
How about this new kickoff return rule? While I have you here, you have the most career kickoff return yards in the history of the league. I'll just be honest with you, Brian. I hate it. Like, I wish we could go back to how it used to be, and I'm not talking about the last iteration of it. Just line the ball up. The NFL tells you how much they care about player safety. We know that's a bunch of bull junk. All they really care about is the money. I would just like to see how kickoffs were when I was growing up.
I would like to see it too because I'm watching them do it in college football still. They return the ball the same way, they run down the field. But the way that it is now, I think it's very effective that you get a running back, someone who's running through the line of scrimmage a lot. Those guys attack it more. The receiver types and the guys that play defensive back, they get to the crowd and then they start to chop their feet. You watch Austin Eckler. Last week, he opened up a game with a 100-yard touchdown. They called it back. Last night, he comes out with a 62-yard return. I believe the running back types are going to be even more effective. DJ Dallas had the first touchdown in the NFL in the new kickoff rules. So it can be very effective if you have the right people out there. And I believe Larry Izzo is one of those guys like a John Harbaugh in Baltimore, like a Dave Tobe in Kansas City, that will have success with it because they understand how to attack it.
My guy Larry Izzo, he once got a game ball for taking a number 2 on the NFL sideline. Belichick gave him a game ball and he didn't get caught. So I was very impressed by Larry Izzo. Let me ask you this before we let you run. You should be in the Hall of Fame. You have the most career kickoff return yards, the most punt return yards in the league. But you know how it is with special teams guys. Like Matthew Slater one day should eventually get in the Hall of Fame. Steve Tasker deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame. I know that you're a nominee, but do you feel confident that one day, that day will come and they'll acknowledge what you did?
Well, after seeing Devin Hester go in and he brought some attention to it, I think it could eventually happen. But the ultimate thing is most of the great coaches in this league, probably all the great coaches in the league, they stress 3 phases, not 2, not 1. It's offense, defense, and special teams. And it makes a difference. And like when people start saying, well, look, you played a long time. That's why you have those numbers. You can't hate on me because I was able to stay accessible and available to my team. Jerry Rice played a long time. That's why he has his numbers. Walter Payton played a long time. That's why he had his numbers. So I think that also comes into it. But if you did things that nobody else did when you left this game, it should be acknowledged.
Well said. Couldn't have said it any better. All right, inside the rest of the NFC East, Brian Mitchell. Belichick next year. Eagles have a coaching problem. I think this is it for McCarthy. And the Giants, I don't think they're attractive enough for Belichick to want to go there, even though he has a lot of respect for that organization and won some championships with them when he was working under Parcells. You think Belichick's back coaching next year, and you think he's at one of those NFC East teams?
I believe he'll be back, but I think it's going to have to take a very strong owner because when Belichick walks into the building, the GM and the owner have to understand he's going to be the face of the franchise. And I think that's the thing that affected a lot of people this year. Some of these young GMs didn't want to have to come into a situation with a Bill Belichick being the coach. And some of the owners that are very, very full of themselves and want to be the name all the time, they fear that as well. But if you want to win, you can say what you want about his style and how he does things, but he gets results. And I think the whole thing about it is being consistent. And one thing we know about Bill, he's going to be consistently the person he is. And if you're going to fall in line, you're going to fall in line or you're not going to be around.
So if you had to take a guess, more likely him in Philly or Dallas next year?
I think Jerry's the type that Jerry's just crazy enough where he loves to be the center of attention, but he'll let this happen because one thing he also loves, he wants to win. He wants to be able to brag, and I believe Bill could get him back that.
He is Brian Mitchell. Brian, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this.
I appreciate it, Zach.
There you go. Brian Mitchell joining us on the Zach Gelb Show after the huge performance by Jayden Daniels. And that's a fun one coming up this weekend against the Commanders as You got the Cliff Kingsbury connection up against his old quarterback, Kyler Murray. You got Jayden Daniels going up against Kyler Murray as well. Real quickly before we run, I want to play this. This is the coach of Auburn, Hugh Freeze. Auburn just lost to Arkansas, and Hugh Freeze was on Tiger Talk on the Auburn Sports Network, and this is what he had to say about Arkansas.
I mean, no offense whatsoever to Arkansas or to Cal. I love Sam Pittman. I hope he wins the rest of his games. But I'm telling you, the hard truth is we play them 9 more times, we beat them 9 times. And that's what's hard to take. And it's hard for our fans, I'm sure, and it's certainly hard for us. And you have 460-something yards, and we only had 50-something plays of offense because we turned it over 5 times.
So here's what I'll say. And I know that this was probably a slap you-know-what kind of interview because it's done on the Auburn Sports Network. Here's my follow-up. Why the heck should I believe you, Coach? You lost to Cal this year, and you just lost to Arkansas. So when you're 2-2 to start off the season, if you say that if you played them 9 more times, you beat them 9 more times, why should I believe you? You know, this isn't Auburn when you had Cam. This isn't an Auburn team that we looked at as a force going into the season. So to think that you're going to beat that Arkansas team 9 times out of 10, and the one loss was what we just saw when you played them and you lost 24-14, absolute nonsense. And their next 3 games, Auburn, Oklahoma, who I don't love Oklahoma this year. But then you play Georgia and Missouri. And quite frankly, I know Missouri is kind of a team that people have been picking to go to the college football playoff. I wasn't that hot on Missouri. They have a good quarterback, but they barely beat Vanderbilt this past weekend. And they struggle a little bit with Boston College. So I don't think that's a great Missouri team. But I'll tell you this. I'm rooting for Oklahoma. I'm rooting for Georgia. I'm rooting for Missouri. Because I thought that was weak from Hugh Freeze. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Big thanks to Stu. Big thanks to Mike. Big thanks to Xavier Gipson of the Jets and also Brian Mitchell for joining us, and each and every one of you for tuning in and listening to our extravaganza. We'll be back tomorrow on a very busy Wednesday show at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.